Your ego either makes you feel less than you are or more than you are. And it's your job to make sure that you continue driving that towards the truth. What results would you have to see? And anybody watching, listening, you can use this in your own life too. Just change the question. What results would I have to see from my podcast in order for me to be over the moon excited and motivated?
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Feed Me Serotonin with me, Alex. In today's episode, I'm joined by a veteran to the podcasting community. My guest today is the host of global top 100 podcast Next Level University with over 800 episodes and listened to in over 100 countries. He's also a speaker and podcast coach, which he is more than qualified for since he built this podcast from $0 and 0 listeners to a multi-six-figure business. I'm humbled and incredibly honored to welcome Kevin Palmieri to the show. Kev, it's a pleasure to host you, man. This has been a long time coming.
It has been, Alex. I am very, very grateful for the opportunity. I'm excited because I know you behind the scenes, which I'm grateful to do also. And my goal is to add as much value as humanly possible today, my friend.
Yeah. But let's slow down for a minute and just digest those figures. I mean, top 100 podcast, 800 episodes. This is almost like if I thought of the pinnacle of where I could take Feed Me Serotonin, that would be it. And I know you and Alan are just getting started. So, you know, how does it make you feel to know that you're sitting with the best?
It's interesting you ask me. I have this practice I do when things are really happening and I feel like business is great, listens are great, clients are great, life is great. I look back on old episodes. Last night, I was sitting in front of the big screen and I was watching Alan and I on YouTube, episode number 100. And looking back, Alan and I were in his sister's old room. We didn't have a studio. We had a black curtain behind us. We didn't know what we were talking about. The camera was horrible. And it made me realize that I think so many of us make a ton of progress, but we don't realize it because we don't have anything to benchmark it on. And that's something I'm grateful to have is we have so much content that I can look back and say, I really sucked. At episode 100, I really sucked. I didn't know what I was talking about. So it feels really good to be with that number. It's actually 850 now because when we first started talking was probably...
Yeah, I can't keep up, Kev.
There's a lot. There's a lot. So no stress. It feels awesome. And the reason it feels awesome is because we're building something that's greater than ourselves. I love, 500,000 downloads is awesome. I love that. I'm grateful for that. 850 episodes, 100 countries, top 100, all of that is awesome. I just want to make sure that I stay me throughout the entire process. And that is what this journey has taught me more than anything is character matters way more than results. Because if you don't have character and then you get the results, you will not have those results for long. It feels great, but there has been an unreasonable amount of challenges to get to where we are today.
Yeah.
Testing my character, testing my finances, testing my sanity, testing my relationships, work ethic, everything. So I wish I could say it was easy. Definitely the most difficult thing I've ever done, but also parallel to that, the most fulfilling thing I've ever done.
Yeah. And, it's impressive to see the results and the outcomes of your podcast, but oftentimes, and you'll know this, people don't see the journey. So let's retrace a little bit to when you were in your mid-20s, I believe. So what was life like before the podcast? What did your career path look like and how were things then?
Yeah, all my friends went to college after high school. I didn't. And I was working a bunch of odd jobs. I worked at a gas station. I worked at a hospital, cleaning floors and stripping and waxing floors. I worked as a forklift operator, a truck driver, a personal trainer. I worked with people doing tiling, general contracting, demolition. I did a bunch of different things. And in my mid-20s, I had this really unique opportunity to go to this. It was kind of like a school, and it was 2 weeks of training, and then they placed you at a job depending on how you did. And I didn't have any job prospects. I didn't go to college. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to be a firefighter. And at this point in my life, I had just done the fire academy. I had graduated and it was time to start looking for a job, but it was really hard to get jobs at that point. And I go to this school and it's 2 weeks and I'm learning weatherization. Weatherization, just think, is making buildings more energy efficient. So you're doing caulking on the windows, you're doing stuff on doors to make sure the breeze doesn't come in, that sort of stuff. And I graduate And they said, we have a really good job for you. You're going to love it. The only problem is there's a lot of travel involved. And I was like, that's a deal breaker. I don't want to do a bunch of travel. And they said, well, you're going to start off making anywhere from $50 to $70 an hour. And I was like, wait, what? $50 to $70 an hour? The most I've ever made was 15 before that.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is not real. This is not real. This is not a real thing. And I go and meet my potential boss. And he says, you're exactly what we're looking for. We love your attitude. Our first job is in Delaware. I lived in Massachusetts in the United States. Delaware was an 8-hour ride. I get in the car with my boss. I've met him. This is the second time I've ever met this person. And I drove 8 hours with him to a house with 7 other people I had never met to do a job I didn't know how to do. And that was how my career there started. And this job for the first couple of years was wonderful because I was making a ton of money and I enjoyed that. But when I was 25, I realized that I was not the man that I thought I was and not the man that people thought I was. My girlfriend at the time left me. And Alex, you know this, you're in fitness. I had just done a bodybuilding show when my girlfriend left me. And whoa. I was, by all outside standards, I had my dream car. My girlfriend was a model. I was in the best shape of my life. I had a high paying job. I had a new place. Like everything seemed great. But when she left me, I had to look in the mirror and say, oh, I'm not confident. I'm not secure. I'm super insecure. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And for the first time ever, I had to look in the mirror. And that was when I started my personal development journey after my girlfriend left me at 25 or 26 is when I started. And I started the podcast after that. Back then it was called the Hyperconscious Podcast. And what happened was this job that brought me so much money now became the thing I leaned into even more. So I started doing personal development. Every night before I went to bed, I would say, I am handsome, I am talented, I am intelligent, and this year I'm going to make the most money I've ever made. The problem is, Alex, I leaned into making the most money I had ever made because I thought that would fix the problem. And that year I was on the road for 10 out of the 12 months, crusty hotel to crusty hotel. I was only home for 4 days, 5 days a month. So I was always on the road, but I was making good money and that was awesome. And we got to the end of the year and I was standing at my kitchen table because my ex-girlfriend had taken the chairs and I never got new ones because I was never home. So it didn't matter. And I was opening my pay stub and I said, did I make $100,000? That was my goal. $100,000 at 26 years old with no college degree. And I did, but nothing changed. I was still insecure. I still lacked confidence. Nothing changed. I fell into the same trap. So that time in my life was a very transitional time because overnight I stopped caring about my job and I stopped caring about money and I started caring more about the podcast. And as you know, if you're traveling 5 days a week, it's very hard to record podcast episodes from a hotel with crusty, crappy Wi-Fi. And it's hard to get guests and it's hard to get privacy. And it was just a very difficult thing. So I had to choose. I felt like I had to choose between the podcast and my job. And one morning I was sitting on the edge of a hotel bed and I was lacing up my work boots. And the best way to explain it is there was 10 televisions on in my head at the same time. And every single one was on a different station. And one was saying, you're stuck here forever. One was saying, you're never going to make $100 anywhere else. You can't go anywhere else. What will your friends think? What will your family think? And the loudest one was saying, do you really think you can be a successful podcaster? And in that moment, sitting on the edge of the bed, I thought to myself, if I took my life, I would take my problems with me. And that wasn't the first time I felt that way. It wasn't the first time I had felt hopeless and helpless and trapped. Luckily, I have a wonderful business partner and best friend who I texted, Alan, you know, Alan. And I said, hey man, I need some help. I am going through it right now. And he said, Kev, so much has changed for you over the last couple of years, but your environment hasn't changed. And I said, okay, what does that mean? And him and I had a conversation about it. And I left that job 3 months later, went full time into podcasting. And I've been podcasting full time since, 2018, I believe.
Yeah. Wow. So that period, that exact moment when you saw these television screens in your head, was this what you would define as your rock bottom? Because you said, this is something you said, by the way, some people find rock bottom. I found out that rock bottom has a basement.
Mhm.
Was this
Yeah.
your real deep, dark moment when you realized that you didn't think you could feel that way making six figures?
Yeah. When my girlfriend left me, that was rock bottom. And when I'm sitting at the edge of the hotel bed saying, I have everything I've ever wanted, why aren't I happy? That was my rock bottom basement moment for sure. And I think that the reason I was willing to go all in on the podcast, we have something we call the pain pleasure pendulum. And I think about it this way. Somebody goes into work on Monday and it just sucks. Monday just sucks. They have a terrible, terrible, terrible day. One of two things happens. You either quit your job on Monday, or Tuesday, it gets a little bit better. Wednesday, it gets a little bit better. Thursday is almost Friday, and Friday's Friday. Saturday and Sunday come and you're living the dream. By the following Monday, you've forgotten how bad it sucked. You've lost the necessity to make a change. When you're at rock bottom basement, there's nothing but necessity. So when you're at hell no, you're willing to risk it all to get to hell yes. And that rock bottom basement moment is what created the work ethic. It's what created the necessity. It's what created the consistency, the focus. Like that part of me that didn't want to live is the same part of me that's keeping me alive and keeping me thriving now. So that was my rock bottom when my girlfriend left. Rock bottom basement on the edge of that hotel room, hotel bed.
So so there was an actual transition period then where you still were working this job and also were a podcaster.
Yep. Yeah.
So if you felt this way, you had sort of anxiety, depression, were you even able to host episodes effectively? How did you manage this? Did you find yourself not really wanting to do it? Or was it the other way around? You were trying to push out everything else?
I think I'm a good actor, Alex. I think I'm a good actor because that wasn't the first time in my life that I didn't want to live. That was the second or third. By that point in my life, I had already gone to therapy. I had been to therapy in Boston, Massachusetts. I had been to therapy in New Hampshire when I lived there. So I think that I thought the way I felt was normal. I didn't know any other way to feel. So to me, it was just normal. It's just like, oh, this is what I do. This is how I feel. And I just push through it. So I don't even know that I realized that was a part of me. What I do know is the reason I loved podcasting so much in the beginning is because I like to talk about things that nobody else would talk about. Very similar to this conversation, talking about mental health and me wanting to take my life and anxiety. At that point, there weren't a lot of people talking about it in my circle. So I was the first person that I knew personally that was open about that kind of stuff. And I had a lot of friends that had dealt with stuff. One of my first episodes was my buddy who wanted to take his own life. And I went to the hospital with him because he said, hey, I'm having bad thoughts. Will you come to the hospital? And I said, yeah, for sure. That was one of the first episodes I did. So it was a lot about mental health looking back. And I think maybe that there was a part of me that needed to have those conversations.
So you were struggling essentially with mental health, sort of things going on there. But at the same time, you were talking about these things to try and help other people. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting because my podcast is actually a similar thing, right? It talks about these things. It started in the depths of the pandemic when everyone was really confused, especially young people. Mm-hmm. They can't see their friends. They don't know what's next. Can they go to school? What can they do? So we started this, me and my co-host at the time. But what I found was that it was actually therapy for me too, by having these conversations. And every episode that I record, I learn more and more about myself. This is a self-improvement journey. It's a self-awareness journey. Me, this time last year, I'll probably say the same thing this time next year, but me this time last year was someone who thought he was okay and thought that he was happy and thought that he knew what the future held. But now I know that there are voices in my head which I ignored, saying, oh, is this what you really want? You should consider this feeling. This feeling is significant. Don't just brush this aside. Spend a moment and think about this. And now I do just that. And it's really powerful. I mean, I feel like we can resonate on that because the source of your discussions is similar to mine, and I love the discussions surrounding sort of productivity and just simple things. Like I don't always have deep conversations. Sometimes it's just, how to get better sleep or 5 things you can do to, improve productivity. But these things, they all add up, and it all gets to the deepest aspect of it. So I don't know if you have any comments on that, but I'd like to ask you about podcasting a little bit further.
Sure. Real quick on that. You said 2 words. You said better and improvement. And we had somebody on the show yesterday. His name is Jason Goldberg. He's a mindset coach for celebrities and a bunch of very, very high up, connected, successful people. And we were talking about how the most successful people in the world, not just like the people who make the most money or actors, actresses, musicians, the people who are the most holistically successful are the people who are the most self-aware. Because you can read, I have books over here and I've read a bunch of books, but those books have taught me about the external world. I've had to teach myself and learn about the internal state that I have. If you're out there watching this, listening to this, understand you can read all the books in the world, but if you don't read the book of yourself, if you don't study the book of yourself, if you don't get into that internal dialogue, you're only going to win at such a level. And it's not going to be holistic. It's going to be external. There's a lot of people who are really good at making money. There's also a lot of people who are really good at making money who aren't good in relationships. It's a holistic journey. And I think that's what you're alluding to.
Yeah. So you're saying it's important to be holistic. Can you just elaborate slightly on what you mean by holistic? Because as young people, we often find a passion and pursue that, and we haven't had time to grow other areas. So what are the sort of disadvantages you'd say of just going one way and not focusing on different aspects that would connect the circle?
Yeah. So my definition of holistic is in the form of life, love, health, and wealth. And I believe that people tend to focus on one at a time or one forever. And the problem is that's not how you get fulfilled. You might get results, but you're not going to find fulfillment. So you could be a billionaire who is single and lonely and out of shape and unhealthy. And I'm sure there's plenty of them, right? You could be somebody who is so deeply in love and connected to your partner and yourself, but you're not sure how to increase your finances and you're not happy with your body. You could be somebody who's in the best shape in the world, the best shape, and people are taking pictures of you and you're in magazines, but you're lonely and you don't know how to make money. What if you level up all 3? What if you have habits for health and you go to the gym and you track your calories and you drink your water and you weigh yourself? And then you have habits for wealth. You track your finances. You eliminate unnecessary spending. You become more productive as a human being and more valuable so you can charge more for your services. Awesome. And then for love, every night before you go to bed, you say what you're grateful for yourself, for your partner. You do check-ins with your significant others. You have open conversations with your family. That's a different life. That's a different life. And money is one form of currency and value. Love is another form of currency and value. And then health is too. And I think if you want to have the best life ever, the most fulfilling life ever, the most aligned life ever, filled with growth, you have to focus on all 3. Now, I will say this. Understand that when you're focused on filling 3 buckets at the same time, it seems like it goes slower. When in reality, you're just building a very, very strong foundation that you'll see a year, 2, 5, 10 down the road, which can be difficult to stick to long term.
The reason I asked you that specifically is because this is probably the biggest challenge for me right now. I'm 20 years old. I have this great idea. I really want to grow this podcast. And I focus on that. I spend a lot of time doing that. And sometimes I find that, I'm not particularly interested in an intimate relationship right now. It's not a priority for me. But what I do have is I live with my parents, and it's important for me to, connect with them, especially that I'm not here at home all of the time. But I often find myself, telling them, oh, sorry, I can't take you there because I'm really busy with this. So I have meetings and etc. And sometimes I forget that it is important to grow things together. It has to be simultaneous. You can't spend 5 years building a fantastic podcast, but having lost everyone else. You see this with, a high performance executives, for example, in like corporate America, right? Wall Street, take that for example. You often find sort of VPs and managing directors in these big banks, etc. They spend a lot of time at work. They spend a lot of time focusing on their career that they don't tend to have grown other areas of their life, like their health, for example. Bankers tend not to sleep as much. Sometimes it's out of their control, but it's just the point that I'm trying to emphasize here, that you often find people without stable relationships because they work too much. If they worked a bit less, they'd get a pay cut, but they'd also be able to create this holistic life. I'm starting to understand this, but it still confuses me a bit. I feel like I'm young. This is the time to just focus on me and focus on, my podcast and, my health, like the gym. That's another thing. I couldn't not do that. But that's another thing altogether. And I know we're both avid gym goers. It's sort of like the cornerstone of everything I do right now.
For sure.
Yeah. It's probably the only habit that I track.
Well, you got to get, not you specifically, but anybody out there, you got to get crystal clear on what you actually want. What are your morals? What are your values? And what are your non-negotiables? Because that's, family is important to me, but my family is unreasonably low maintenance. So I was raised in a single parent household. My mom and my grandmother raised me, and they are the least maintenance people in the world. Like, Kev, go do your thing. Come see us once a month. Come see us once every couple months. That works for me. It doesn't work for everybody. It doesn't work for my fiance. She likes going to see her family every week. Okay, cool. That's fine. I like going to the gym every day. I want to go to the gym 7 days a week. I take some off, but that's me. I love it. I'll get up at 4 a.m. because I love the gym. You have to get clear on how important is family, how important is travel, how important is impact, how important is money. And I think that we don't sit down and say like, okay, what do I want? I want a net worth of $1 million or whatever it is. I want a net worth of $5 million. Okay, cool. I want to be able to walk my kid to the bus stop so I can drop them off at school. Okay, cool. That's going to change things. And I want to become an avid yoga person. Awesome. You can do all those things. But you have to be clear on what you want first. And I don't think that people start there. I think people go all in on one and then they forget about the other one. So sit down and write that out. Like, where do you actually want to be in health, wealth, and love?
Yeah. And I often think of things, I like to think of things with examples and actionable ways to try and sort of process some of the ideas that I have in the different areas of my life. But the way that I think I've always looked at the different categories that are in my life, health, wealth, love, and other things, is sort of like a booklet, right? There's a page and then you turn over and you can see them all side by side. But that doesn't tell me which to prioritize when things get tough, and which are more important, which do I want more. I have to constantly think about this, and it changes all the time. But a way that I've tried to sort of make more sense of all these areas is try to prioritize things. So, for example, I would make a list, right? And the top of the list would be like family. So, for example, if I had scheduled 3 hours of research on my podcast and something came up and I needed to help out around the house or with my family, that would really benefit them, I would drop the research and I would go and do that. Mm-hmm. I feel like that has been a good way for me to really maintain all areas. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I just keep the book open on one page and then force it open on that page for as long as I can.
Yeah.
It's difficult because there's a lot of things to keep in mind, and I get very distracted, and sometimes I just pursue something and then forget that I have a whole other life that I have to maintain.
Same. That's self-awareness though. And that again, it's fun for me to say this because you're 20. Like, you're 20 years old and you're already doing all these things. And I know that doesn't help. It doesn't give you solace necessarily, but it's impressive, and you'll figure it out because you're focused on figuring it out, and it's like, don't beat yourself up too much, but beat yourself up enough to do something different. And it's that fine line of, maybe you do go too all in on some things. Okay, cool. Like, let's dial that back. But then also let's get crystal clear on Am I getting the results where I want to get? It's just a forever process. Everything that we're talking about today is a forever process. And you just got to get a little bit better, 1%. And then you look back in 2 years and it's like, oh my goodness, I've done 104 episodes in 2 years. Oh my God, I can't believe that. Oh, I've lost all this weight. My bench press, my squat, my deadlift are higher. I have a relationship now. Then it's like, oh, okay, it's really starting to pay off. But if it doesn't feel like it's paying off in the moment, that's when things get difficult for sure.
Yeah. And I think, I hear this a lot, especially around the new year. People say the scariest thing is being in the same place you were last year. And I think 2022, as of January 2022, I think this is the first time when I've been able to look back and gone, okay, I am a step further ahead. And that doesn't just mean academic achievement, because that's not actually that important to me. I don't learn much in my degree that will help me build a podcast and work on my passions. It's about going to work, for a large corporation. And that's great, but it's not really my passion. I don't see that as, oh, look, I've progressed one step further in my life. But this year, I didn't publish that many podcast episodes, but I just set the bar, right? It was year one. So I really, everything was new. I understood how to run a podcast, how to record episodes, how to chat with guests, where to find guests. I didn't even start recording with guests at the beginning. People had to listen to my boring monotone voice for 30 minutes. Yeah. But I believe I have rolled the ball on my self-awareness journey, because I was completely cocky, thought I knew absolutely everything this time last year. And I said this earlier, I'll probably see the same thing next year, thinking that I'm a really egotistical and know-it-all, at this stage. But since you've progressed slightly further in your self-awareness journey, how do you compare your life now then to when you look back to the beginning of your podcast? Like, how have things changed? What have you learned in your self-awareness journey?
Oh man, I've learned so much. I've learned that I think the biggest thing for me is that human beings are so malleable. And I challenge you to do this, Alex, after today, whenever you get a minute, go back and watch some of our first episodes. I don't know if you have. When you see the difference for you, it'll be like, oh my goodness, wow, what a drastic difference. For me, I remember what I was thinking when we were recording those episodes. So it's even weirder for me. So I think, number one, human beings are unreasonably malleable, and you are capable of shifting yourself into a completely different version of yourself with enough time given. That's the important thing. Is I didn't know anything about sales. I didn't know anything about business. I didn't know anything about podcasting, speaking, coaching, anything, numbers. I didn't know anything about any of that at the beginning of this. And now 850 episodes and thousands of hours and a bunch of clients and $30,000 months and all this, that's all happening now because of what I did over the last 4 years. So that's number one. Number one, you are unreasonably malleable.
Hello, this is Dr. Tarryn MacCarthy, and we are well into 2022. And maybe you are not willing to have a repeat of the last 2 years. Or perhaps you've had an inkling for quite some time that you are destined for something greater than what you're experiencing in your reality right now. Maybe it's your business or your work, and you know that there's greater value and impact that you can have in your community. Or maybe it's love and connection that's been eluding you. Or perhaps it's your health and wellness, and you know that you can feel better, do better than this. Well, join us at Next Level Live, March 26th, a full day immersion with experts in their fields to help guide you on how to bring your life to the next level. Looking forward to seeing you there.
Number two, consistency matters more than anything. I've seen a lot of people that I started this journey with be consistent, but in the wrong direction. And now their life is a result of that. I've also seen people be very consistent in a positive way, and their lives have changed dramatically. The day-to-day does not seem important at all, but it is also the most important thing ever of all time. That's a very unique perspective that I have now that I didn't understand. What I do today doesn't matter tomorrow, really, but it also matters more than anything. because what I do tomorrow is based on what I do today. So that's a whole nother piece. And then what else would I say? Mindset shifts. You're conditioned to either believe in yourself too little or too much. From what I've seen studying human beings, your ego either makes you feel less than you are or more than you are. And it's your job to make sure that you continue driving that towards the truth. I don't know that anybody is fully accurate in their thinking about themselves, myself included. I think I suck. I just naturally do. I don't think I'm good at speaking or podcasting, or that's something I deal with. So you have to understand that just because you have a limiting belief doesn't mean you have limited results. If you want to get a result, you just have to continue moving the barrier and the perimeter of your limiting belief, and you'll start to get different results. I would say those three are pretty impactful for me.
Yeah. And, just as an example of something that you see results in, whether you have, like, for example, the gym, right? I don't have particularly good genetics. So I don't have, the upper hand. But because I've been going for years, I've seen the strength gains, I've seen the muscle gains, and you do see it after a while. So that's always a good metric for me to sort of measure things. And you mentioned there consistency in different directions. I'd like to unpack that. You said you've seen people move consistently in the wrong direction. Mm-hmm. What did you mean by that?
I had people in my life in the beginning of this journey when I became the self-improvement guy in my circle that would come to me consistently for advice. And I would give them the same advice. I'd give them books. I'd give them courses. I'd give them coaching. I'd give them support. I'd give them love. And they kept making the same decisions to spend time around people who didn't care if they succeeded, to continue listening to the beliefs that were holding them back, to not try to better themselves. And those people, if this is, 10 out of 10, if you're listening, I'm just pointing towards the sky. If directly up like a rocket would shoot is 100%, these people are probably at 60 or 50. They're getting better results than they were, but not the results they could be getting. And I believe that we're all consistent. Human beings are consistent. It's just whether or not are you consistent in the right things. I think we're consistent for convenience. McDonald's does not have good food. They're convenient, right? Like McDonald's does not have a particularly quality hamburger or chicken nuggets. They're just very convenient. If you're in a diet or you're trying to bulk, it's cheap. So that definitely helps. But the point I'm making with that is you have to understand that you're already consistent in certain behaviors. And if those behaviors are not getting the results that you want, they are bringing you somewhere. It's just, you don't know where you're going to arrive yet. If you eat 500 calories too much over the course of a day, you multiply that by 7, that's a pound gained. If you do that every week, that's 52 pounds gained. If you do that for 10 years, that's 520. And again, I'm just playing with the numbers here. But if you do the opposite, you lose weight. It's just a simple shift. We all have consistency already. We all are consistent in certain ways. They're probably just not the most ideal way. And I think that's an important distinction. A lot of people say, I'm just not consistent. No, that's not true. That's not true. That's like you saying I'm not smart. It's like, well, no, maybe you're not as intelligent when it comes to certain things, but there are things that you're better at than I am. There just are. You're not consistent at the right things yet. That's all it is. So that's what I've seen is a lot of people. I'll use podcasting as an example. There's really only so much that goes into it. Audio quality, video quality, good interviewing, consistency, building relationships with your audience, monetizing so you can pour back into it. That's the main stuff. Okay, that's the first level of consistency. Awesome. Then how do you improve each of those by 1%? You get a new microphone. You and I were talking about a ring light before this. 1% improvement. Awesome. Love it. Maybe a backdrop. Awesome. Another 1%. Cool. Then you go over to interviewing, study interviewers, listen back to your old episodes, right? So you're consistently doing podcast episodes, and then you are consistently getting better at doing the podcast episodes. So your episodes get better, and then everything exponential, it grows. And that's all I'm saying when it comes to consistency. You're already consistent. Just make sure it's in the right arenas.
Yeah. The issue that I get, and I think a lot of other people get, is that they get a burst of energy, right? It's like people who join the gym in January.
Yeah.
I think they say the 17th of January is the day that people give up. I think the app Strava that tracks like running distances and people can, track their times, etc. 17th of January is the day that most people stop using it. So that suggests to me that people they go flat out for 17 days. They eat kale and they eat ice cubes and they do really things that they really don't want to do, especially after a Christmas binge. So they go the other way completely. Yeah. And then they give up and they burn out. And the way that I think this relates to consistency for me is that I think I burn out when I do things consistently. So let's say I spend every day working on the podcast. I end up doing that for a few weeks and then I just don't for an extended period of time. So I tend to block things and then all of a sudden I can't do any more of this right now. So I really struggle with that. And I think that's a matter of discipline. But the gym is the only area where I've been able to go every week. And I see the results. So it's not that I don't understand what consistency does to you.
Yeah.
It's that I can't go to the gym every day consistently. And then I can't do the podcast every week consistently. And then do my studies consistently. I always find that typically I'm not consistent in one area, but not in the other. The gym is the only one that's just in the background running consistently. But studies, for example, if they're bad, the podcast is bad too. I'm usually all in or not at all, if that makes sense. Yeah. I can't get up at 5 a.m. every day. I'll do it for a month and then I'll get up at 8 because I just burned out. Does that sound like burnout to you, or is it just a matter of discipline?
I think there's a lot of layers underneath that. It's like, okay, are you going to bed at the same time? Yeah. Or are you staying up? So yeah, it might be one of two things. You're taking your eye off the prize. And I think the gym is such a useful analogy because you said, I'm seeing the results. Great question. What results would you have to see? And anybody watching, listening, you can use this in your own life too. Just change the question. What results would I have to see from my podcast in order for me to be over the moon excited and motivated? Like that is a powerful question. What result would I have to see out of my studies, out of school? Like what would I have to, is it straight A's? Would that motivate me to do better? It's that, or maybe it's misaligned. It's very hard to get motivated and inspired to do something that doesn't inspire you. Because then you're just playing against the current. Where at least if it's something you like, you're going with the current. So it sounds like it could be burnout because you're doing a lot of things, but I also think you have to check in with, are you actually seeing results that catalyze deeper motivation and why power?
It's interesting you mentioned, obviously positive results motivate me further. And that's why I love the gym, because I can go in the gym, and I can see, a good pump. And I've noticed that the week before I wasn't as full and I wasn't as strong. It's a really easy way to measure progress because last week, I could squat 1,000 pounds. I couldn't, but I'm just going to use that number. It's somewhere around there. And then this week it's 1,005. It's easy to see. Okay, I can squat 5 more pounds. Other areas are more difficult. I mean, we have the podcast. There's so many analytics that underlines that, and I do track it regularly. And I think the issue with the podcasting is that I'll spend a lot of time doing it. Like, right, I'm going to get my listens up, and then after a few months, I realized that my latest episode actually got less listens than one did a few weeks ago. In the first 7 days. I'm like, why is that? I'm putting so much effort into this. So I think I am very, very results driven in terms of motivation. So that's probably the issue there, is that I'm not seeing the results. So I just take a back seat. I'm like, well, what's the point? Yeah. But I always come back to it because this is still a huge passion. Making the content itself is a huge passion of mine. And you really hit the nail on the head there.
This is necessity. This is the necessity, Alex. Understand that if you take off in the dips, you'll never get the peaks you want. That's all it is. It's like, I didn't see any results in the gym, so I stopped going. It's like, what if you were just about to, though? Like, what if you were just about to turn the point? I started dieting. My weight didn't change. It went up. It went up a couple times over the first week and a half. I didn't see any changes for a week and a half. I can tell you with certainty, our podcast downloads were lower last They were lower in December than they were in November by like 25%. But that's just par for the course. There's ebbs and flows. And the 1% improvement game, if you're out there right now watching, listening to this, what's the 1% improvement? And I got that from Alan, who got that from Atomic Habits, I believe. But like, okay, the listens aren't up. All right, fine. Maybe it's because the industry, maybe it's because holidays, maybe it's because of the pandemic, maybe it's, maybe people just missed, whatever. What can you do though? What's the 1% improvement that you can actually do? And if you focus on that progress, those results, then you'll start to get different results. Don't focus on, yes, the numbers are important, but focus on the delivery and the numbers will start to shift.
Yeah. And this is exactly why, and for those of you who don't know, which is probably most of you, I'm working closely with Kevin and Alan, who Kev mentioned earlier, on a group coaching session that they have set up now for the next 3 months. This is essentially peak performance tracking my habits, making sure that I have accountability, because that's a huge issue. Mm-hmm. And also focusing on what Kev just mentioned, the 1% improvement. What can I do each day? Just a 1% improvement, not a huge change, because I've always looked for massive changes. What can I do? Oh, I'll buy a whole new studio setup. No, just 1%. Mm-hmm. So that's something that I've been working on recently. And I want to just quickly pick your mind on habits, because from what I know from our short time knowing each other, from what Alan has said about you too, is that you were incredibly disciplined when it comes to tracking your habits. Mm-hmm. I think it's about 20 a day that you track now,
23 right now. Yeah.
Right. So why do you track habits and how do you keep on top of these every day?
So this is a unique thing that I think to myself, and I know this doesn't work for everybody, but just think about it for a second. I have come to very, very, very binary terms with myself that either I do what it takes to succeed or I don't get the result I want. And I'm just that way of, I want to win, Alex. I want to win. I want to win so bad. I've traded so much of my life for this. I need to win. It's not even that I want to, I need to. And it's become part of my identity that I am, and you said it, I am the consistency guy. Like, I'm really good at consistency. I get 100% done every single day, Sunday, Saturday, doesn't matter. Traveling, doesn't matter. So what I would say is one of the reasons I am good at it is because I am good at dealing with discomfort and uncertainty. I don't like most of the habits I do. I don't like tracking podcast listens. I do like tracking the finances because that's a result and I like that. I don't like meditating. I don't like learning for 45 minutes a day. I don't really enjoy that. But the question is this: what are you willing to do to get the result? And honestly, that is the question. There's a lot of people, and I definitely agree with some of this, but there's a lot of people who say like, success shouldn't be hard. If it's hard, you're doing it wrong. No, I don't think so. Maybe if it's hard, it's beyond your current capability, which is forcing you to grow, and growth requires conflict, and growth is tough. That's okay. It's okay to say that. It's okay to say that. So I think you have to have the honest conversation of, eventually you got to get sick of not accomplishing your goals. Yeah. Like right now, I'm eating like a slob. Like I'm not happy with my physique. I'm not happy with the way I look, but the pain hasn't been great enough for me to stop eating garbage. Like candy. There's candy around the house. Every time I walk by, I'm sneaking one in. The only person I'm hurting is myself. But I was at the gym today and I was like, you got to stop this shit, man. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Don't you like it better when you're leaner and you can move better and you feel better and you're more athletic and your clothes fit better? I think that people, they don't understand the long-term detriment of their bad habits, and they don't understand the long-term benefit of their good ones. And you have to check in with what you actually want. And you have to have the conversation of, will you get the results you want with what you're currently doing? And then ask somebody who knows better or knows more, who's been in it longer. We had somebody in group coaching who, one of the other rounds, and they said, well, I honestly feel like I could be running one of these. Like, I don't feel like I should be a student. I feel like I should be running one. And I said, I love that. I appreciate that. With all the love in the world. When you start getting 100% on your habits, you can say that. Until then, there's work to do. Like, you're not ready. So there also, I think, is a level of disconnection between reality and expectation, and myself included, of what am I actually doing and what result will it get me? And I think that's a hard thing to figure out and come to terms with, but you have to be brutally honest with yourself. And I don't think people are. I think people lie to themselves. I think they lie to themselves and say, yeah, I'm happy with my body. It's like, well, okay, cool. I love that. I hope you're happy with your body. You should be happy with your body, but you can also be ambitious for more. We call it grateful ambition. I'm grateful for what I have, but I'm hungry for what the next level is. And I think you also have to have a goal. You're not going to be consistent. You're not going to have good habits if there's no downside of not. I think that's the other part too, is I have very big ambitions. I want to be a billionaire. I want to have the biggest podcast in the personal development space. Like, that's a huge thing. If I don't do this, I just won't get it. And I'm not okay with it. I'm not okay with not getting that result.
But you've firstly got to believe that what you're doing will get you there. Because, for example, you track habits, right? And you say, what drives you is saying, well, it starts with a conversation with yourself. Like, do you really want to be, the person you've always been? Like, I sit there sometimes and I'm like, come on now, like, stop fucking around. Like, I'm serious. I get really, really upset. I cry a lot about this. Like, I can't be this just person in the background. I really want to excel. I have to. There's no question about it. You understand that. You just explained your ambitions. But it frustrates me so much. And I don't know why I still am not consistent with my habits. And maybe it's because I don't know whether these are going
possible
to push me that way. Would you have any advice for me maybe being more disciplined with these habits? I mean, is there any other way I could approach this? I don't know whether I just need to just get a grip and do it. That's probably a part of it. And it is a part of it. I'm not as, my parents are very harsh on me. They're like, oh, you work hard enough, take a break. And I'm like, no, I don't. It's 8 p.m. and you're saying, calm down. I'm like, no, it's 8 p.m. It's time to get to work. Yeah. But I don't know where, are they right? There's a lot of questions when it comes to this, right? Am I working too hard? Why can't I do this?
It depends on a lot of things. Are you, and you don't have to answer it if it's tough, but are you the most ambitious person in your friend group?
In my closest friend group at home, yes. And they will say the same thing.
Yeah. So there's 3 types of people. There's people who want to see you win. There's people who want to see you lose. And there's people who don't care. And you might hear that and say, okay, so surround yourself with people who don't care and the people who want to see you win. No. The people who don't care whether or not you succeed are not able to lift you to where you're trying to get, because they love you for who you are. And I love you for who you are, but I also love you for who you can be.
Yeah.
And I love you for who you were, because that's who you are today. That, I think it's probably the environment. There's a reason, and I'll take people behind the scenes. There's a reason I reached out to you for group coaching, because I do see that in you. And I feel like you're probably a big fish in a small pond, and you need to get, you need to get perspective of like, hey man, when I was 20 years old, I was getting drunk and high and I wasn't podcasting, and you are. So guess what? And this is with love. Guess what, dude? You can be more successful than I am, because you started 6 years before I did. Like, geez, you know what I mean? 6 years before I did. So when you're 26, you will have been podcasting longer than I am now than from when I started. So why can't you have the result I have?
I think that's one of the flaws of living with parents as well, because we have COVID. I spend a lot of time studying from home.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the issues, the environment that I'm in. It's fantastic, by the way. I wouldn't change it for the world. Like, I'm incredibly grateful for their emotional and financial support through all difficult times that I've had.
Yeah.
It's been amazing, but they're a bit soft.
Yeah.
They're not the really conservative parents. You're like, oh, you need to go and do karate practice and do this, and we won't let you have nice things. You need to be toughened up. They were always trying to give me what I wanted. Maybe that's it. Maybe I'm just now conditioning myself into a more resilient, consistent, tough person. And by the way, in terms of friend groups, it took me a while to answer that, because I have a whole new group of friends that I met in London as a student. And these people, a lot of them are entrepreneurs already and are way ahead of me. And they are the ones who keep pushing me to excel at these things. And I think if I had the opportunity to spend more time with them, unfortunately, they're from all areas of the globe, so it's really difficult to get in touch with them. But if I could spend more time with people like that, I know I would excel more. And when I am in London, I do more. It's crazy. Yeah. The second I came home, I stopped recording episodes. I just chilled. And it made me sad. So, yeah, I want to... Sorry.
No, you're good. I was going to say, last thing. Some people, Alex, are afraid of success. And that, I never understood. It's like, how can you be afraid of success? Doesn't everybody want to be successful? No, because a lot of people are afraid of success because they know that they're going to have to leave some people behind. And maybe that's something you're checking in with of, do you know what is a perceived negative, but has been the most positive thing I've ever experienced? The fear of being left behind. Alan, it will outgrow me if I stop growing. He will. He's outgrown everybody he's ever known. He will outgrow me if I stop working. And it's difficult and it's a challenge and there's conflict there, but that's also all the motivation. That's why when you're around certain people, you have to get it together. We all have that friend that we go to the gym with who makes us look bad. I do too. And it's awesome. It's awesome because it's like, you better be on your game today. But if you're always the best in the gym, you're not making that much progress. And there's not enough necessity.
I mean, I actually, when I started training, it was more of a fitness center than a gym. It was for older people, I think, just trying to keep mobile. And I became a beast in that gym. And then when I moved to the big boy gym, I was not a beast.
Yeah.
I was in the bottom 1%, I think, of my demographic. But now I'm approaching that level again when I'm one of the strongest. And because it's a commercial gym, sort of more bodybuilding focused, there are some big, strong guys there. And to be able to sit at the top with them, imagine seeing a guy like that in that fitness center. I'd be like, wow, I mean, all of a sudden. So, yeah, you're right. And as you said, it's not a fear. I don't think it's a fear. This sounds selfish. I don't think it's a fear of leaving people behind. When I picture myself as successful, I would be happy, happy if some people weren't always in my life that currently are. I mean, it would be a real shame to leave my friends behind. But I think the issue is right now, I don't want to do it now. And I think I'd need to do something now in order to push ahead. I don't want to feel like I'm pulling people with me, because I try and encourage my friends, do things, I'll help you sort of, do this, do that, give them books. And as you said, I think just some people keep the same old habits.
Yeah.
But I'd rather be the guy having to force myself forward with the risk of being left behind if I don't keep progressing.
Yeah.
And I think when you're in a group of people like that, forward is the only way. You can't stop. If you stop, then the serious problems happen because you're not in that group anymore. And I think that's really powerful to me. It's crazy how the environment shapes you. I'm very, very sensitive to my environment, incredibly. For
now, it might not stay that way forever. I was very similar, but now it's like, because now I have the identity of that person. So that's part of it too, is continuing to shift that identity as that person. You said it, I'm one of the strongest in the gym now. Like, oh, okay, cool. That's your identity now. So when you walk in the gym, everything's different. You don't walk in like this. You walk in with your chest up and your head up, and whatever you're listening to or whatever you may be doing. So your identity shifts everything: perspective, behavior, expectations, the way you show up, delivery, everything. And you're a podcaster. So that's what you have to start saying proudly. I'm a podcaster. I'm a podcast coach. I'm a speaker. Well, that's what I do. And that's what I'm 1% improving every single day. Same for you. Every day, if you prove to yourself, maybe you don't record an episode, but maybe you listen back to one. And then maybe you listen to a seminar on speaking. 1%. Then you become that type of person. And then you can lean into that more. And it's hard to break the identity. So you just have to continue building your identity that way.
Yeah. And because I said I'm so sensitive to the environment, what I actually did was I went on Instagram and I unfollowed about 50% of the people that I followed today.
Yeah.
I did that just today.
Okay.
And I started following more people, Stephen Bartlett, Jay Shetty, really, really great, influential people that I really look up to and I would like to be. Like you, I follow your Instagram. I just browse through your Instagram sometimes because that's the sort of Instagram I want. I listen to people who I would like to be like. I don't follow, the 16-year-old who's just had 3 kids and, doesn't know what to do with their life. It's a lot of the time, they're nice people I used to be friends with, but I have to because they're just not the same kind of person that I'm trying to lean into. And you did an episode yourself on leaning into your identity, and I thought that was really powerful. Yeah. Just really capitalizing on who you want to be and who you are. So let's wrap up then. I know we've been going for a while now, so let's go with a couple of takeaways for my audience then. Like, what can you leave with us to help us, in terms of discipline? It could be finding your passion.
Sure.
Self-improvement. What can you leave with us?
I'll leave with a couple of quotes. My favorite quote is the biggest difference between the person you are and the person you want to be is your habits. That's it. That's it. So if you start focusing on 1% improvements in your habits, your life will change dramatically. It doesn't have to happen overnight. If you don't go to the gym and you want to go to the gym, your first 1% improvement is find a gym. Cool. Second one, drive by it. Third one, walk in. Sign up for a membership. Fourth one, go 1 day a week for 5 minutes, whatever it is. Like that small thing. And then this might be my actual favorite one. Your reality becomes the parts of your imagination you hold on to the longest. Don't be afraid to say what you really want out of life. Really, really lean into it. Like, talk about what you want out of life and just be honest. And if the people around you don't support you when it comes to that, then it's time for you to reallocate your love and your energy and your time, because those are valuable, valuable things. And last one, are the people in your life the best from your past or the best for your future? Are they going to help you get to the version of you that you want to get to, or are they holding you back from that? You don't have to cut people out, reallocate time. But are you willing to trade your dreams to keep old friendships that don't serve you any longer? Hardcore, I know it sounds hardcore, but there's a lot of nuance to that.
Best from your past or the best for your future. I love that. That's going to stick with me. And I hope you guys will remember that one and all the other tips that Kev's given. I mean, I feel like this has been a coaching session. I feel so much more motivated now, and hopefully that will stick. But yeah, that's it for this episode, guys. Kev, thank you for coming on, man. Hopefully we can do this again and look back and laugh at how egotistical I've been, maybe. But see you in the next one.